So why is China emerging as the new Silicon Valley? It's not only this economic backdrop, but it's because of these factors here, that China has the world's largest number of mobile phone users. It has the world's largest internet market. It just surpassed the US for the largest number of internet users in the world. It graduates 3 times as many engineering students as we do here in the US. It has the fastest growing venture capital market in the world, and it has had for several years now. Not only that, but it has 2 of the top 10 websites globally already. The government realizes this is a really good thing, so the government is behind this. They're pushing this technology growth. The fact is that a lot of this skill, this innate ability, has been suppressed by the Cultural Revolution, by famine, by years of strife. And now it's coming to the forefront. This is really no surprise, because if you think back in China's history, this country has an innate entrepreneurial ability. What began as these original copycats, that's old hat now in China. It's emerged, it's gone on beyond that. The people that I'm meeting today are coming up with new inventions. These Chinese tech brands are emerging just like compact cars did from Japan a couple decades ago. I bought one of those Honda Civics. In fact, it looks a lot like that one that's pictured there, the red one. Everybody ridiculed me and said, oh, there's no way that car's ever going to last. Well, about 200,000 miles later, it was still going, although it did rust out a little bit on the bottom, I have to admit, but the engine kept going. And I think the Japanese showed Detroit a thing or two, and now I think Chinese tech brands are on the same plateau. China is emerging from this low-cost, this cheap manufacturing base to a high-tech, inventive nation. These Chinese startups have emerged as publicly listed companies here in the US. There are many, many stock winners out there. Baidu was trading at over $400 a share just last November. Alibaba went public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and raised a record amount. Of course, every bright picture has some contrast in it, and this is the contrast. The backdrop is that we're not there yet, that China has this evolving legal, financial, and political framework that's going to cause this whole tech bubble to rise and rise. Meanwhile, Silicon Valley hasn't exactly shown the world the greatest things imaginable. I tried really hard to find some real breakthrough ideas from the West, and I don't know, I couldn't come up with that many. The iPod is, yeah, it's taken over a lot of people's lives, but I wouldn't call it revolutionary. The Segway is pretty popular in some markets. I've even seen it used at airports. But I wouldn't say that that's real revolutionary either. So it's no wonder that the venture investors are looking for the next new thing in China. What's really ironic about that is just a few years ago, they told me that they would never invest in China. All of the venture capital investors that I know now have a China strategy. They're all looking for the next new thing from China, and many of them have not been disappointed. So is the next Steve Jobs going to come from China? Well, when I ask the experts in the business, they always look at me with this little bemused grin, like, how can you ask a question like that? I think these Chinese entrepreneurs are beginning to show the world not only their tech talent, but they're showing the world that they can invent companies that are world-class companies, that are billion-dollar companies. And I think for sure that I've already met some Steve Jobs-like characters in China.
The large income gap between the rural and the city populations, are any of these companies showing any social responsibility?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one of the things that I was asking many of the entrepreneurs, well, what are you going to do after this? How are you going to do something good for society? And you've made all this money now. So I asked Jack Ma that question. He's a multi-millionaire, and he told me, well, he does want to do something good for society. He wants to get into helping the farmers develop a more efficient agricultural system. So I think that's a good sign. But he's really rare. Not most of them are so into this whole entrepreneurial scene that once they get one company that's a success and they've taken it public, they go on and do another one. It's not at the level that we have here yet where, you give back.
I am wondering, while you were there, and since you're very connected with the culture, do you think that they become so successful because the school, the curriculum of the school, the culture, they push to be very creative? I mean, what it is that we don't have?
I think it's partly the way that they were raised, too. Many of these people are the first generation that's come out of the Cultural Revolution. So for years you had this whole entrepreneurial ability suppressed, and now this is the first generation that's been able to express it. Many of them have been encouraged by their parents to study hard. I also think that the Chinese are really innately entrepreneurial compared to many entrepreneurs that I've met in my travels and my reporting as a journalist. The Chinese excel. They're not afraid to take risk. It's a little bit like America's culture where it's okay to fail. In China, it's also okay to fail. It's really a part of the culture. And the thing is that the economy is growing so fast, there's so much opportunity, it's hard not to get involved in it, to want to be a part of it, to help drive this economic boom and make some money yourself too.